Well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining today's call. My name is Mikey Mhenna. I'm the Executive Director of Afikra, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this very special Afikra Conversations. It is my honor to introduce Maisa, who is an archive manager, an art researcher, and writer focusing on the Arab world. And she is also Afikra's Europe Regional Ambassador and is based in London. She's been a part of the team for a very long time, and I'm very excited that she's going to be leading this interview. Maisa, take it away.
Thank you, Mikey. Hi, everyone. I'll just do a very quick intro. So Waddah Faris is a man of many trades. He's a designer, artist, photographer, art critic, and former gallerist. After spending much of his youth in Beirut, he traveled to the UK to study architecture in the late 1950s, then deciding it wasn't for him and transferred to study in Berlin. He returned to Beirut in 1963 and began working as a designer for publishing houses, including Dar al-Tali'a, a radical publishing house where he designed books for Ghassan Kanafani in particular. He then started working for Hiwar Magazine, where he gave a voice to artists of the region, and also later worked with Shir Magazine and An-Nahar Newspaper. In the 1970s, he opened Contact Art Gallery, which became a central feature of Beirut's art scene for 3 years, and he also designed innovative catalogues for the Baalbek Festival in 1973 and 1974. He then moved to Paris in 1979, where he established Galerie Faris and continued to promote Arab and European contemporary art, and has been living in Barcelona since 1984. Throughout all of these experiences, Waddah has been constantly taking incredible, candid photographs of Beirut and all of the fascinating people around him. Thank you so much, Waddah, for being with us today. It's such an honor to have you on Afikra Conversations. Waddah, can you hear us?
Yeah, now, yes.
Yes, okay. Okay, the sound is okay? You can hear everything?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'll get started with that. Thank you again for being here. I want to start kind of with a biographical question, and I'll start pretty early on in your life. I've been reading Zaina Ma'asri's book, Cosmopolitan Radicalism, which is amazing, and it talks about you and your work quite a bit. And she used this one phrase that you have a hyphenated Iraqi, Syrian, Lebanese identity. So I wanted to explore that a bit. You were born in Aleppo.
Sorry, a couple of hyphens.
Yeah.
Syrian, Palestinian, Arab identity.
So many things. Well, I just wanted to clarify. Your mother was Syrian, your father was Iraqi. I just wanted to know, like, how long did you spend in Syria? When did you move to Lebanon? Did you ever spend time in Iraq as well?
Yes, very time at the beginning. When my sister was born, which is, I was four then. I spent maybe a year and a half, 2 years in Iraq as a child. Before that, in Turkey, when my brother was born. And as a matter of fact, I learned Turkish before I learned Arabic.
Oh.
Yeah, I went to school there as a kid. Back again to Syria, short spell in Iraq, a short time in Istanbul, and I remember the wife of the ambassador, who was a friend of my mother's, was the artist Fakhr Nisa.
Oh, wow.
Because the consul, the minister, plenipotentiary minister then was Amir Zaid in Istanbul. So it's a composition of memoir which really defeats me. I can't understand well.
So a lot of hyphens. There's just too many hyphens between all of the various parts of your identity.
Ended up in Beirut when I was 7. And I went to school first there in Al-Ahliya, which is a school mainly for girls, it was. Then it became mixed. And it was by a great, memorable, founded by a great educationist, Mrs. Cortas, Mariam Cortas's mother. Fantastic lady. And that is where I started learning about being an Arab as an identity. Then again, luckily, I went to school in the mountains in Suq al-Gharb, where the headmaster was another memorable character where I was more aware of him. He is a Syrian Protestant minister who was the head of our school, Tawfiq Habbas. I think anybody my age who has been to Lebanon would as well remember him. Then to university, where AUB in 1958.
So you studied at AUB?
Pardon?
I was going to ask you about your university. I thought, did you go to the
Yes,
UK?
yes.
Study architecture?
Was you can call it throughout, not a university curriculum, but more an education in the broadest sense. So I went from course to another, from beginning in architecture to ending up in art in Germany. It's a mixed thing that rotates really around my illusions of the time. And art was one of them that took me through design to a career, a short one, and a bit of memories that accumulated after that.
Of course. So when you went to the UK to study architecture, you decided to change.
It's an odd thing. It was when I wanted to go study. Essentially, the only thing I wanted to do was study art. And I had a confrontation with my father, who is a self-made man that grew into the diplomatic service, civil service in Iraq, who had his own ideas about his eldest son. Now, in Beirut, I started having thoughts about art. And my first application to university was to Madrid for the School of Art in Madrid University. And I got an application, acceptance, everything all settled. Now I need to get the approval of my father for support. My father, bless his soul, you can see his photo there, was glum and told me to come and see him at his office at the embassy. was at the end of Commodore Street in that time, where our house was at the beginning of Commodore Street, near the Hotel Commodore. And I didn't know. I thought probably it was a girl affair or something, and I was perplexed. Why is he calling me to his office, and seriously? Mm-hmm. So I go to the office, and he's shuffling through papers, very embarrassed to start the chat. And I thought, my God, what is it? Some parents, something. And he goes, I have no son that is going to be a cabaret musician. That's artist for him. So it made an argument in the family. My mother was more cultured, to say, educated and cultured person. And she was in between. And then negotiations made me settle for the nearest to art, which is architecture. Yes. So we went to England.
So then when you were in England, what point did you realize architecture isn't for me, I'm more interested in graphics?
That was the beginning. It was one architect that I knew at the time, studying in Oxford College of Technology, because at that time they had a school of architecture. And he introduced me to Reginald Cave, who is the president, who said, oh, very interesting, very interesting. Come so and so date for an interview. So I went. And usually I observe. I didn't prepare, like your interview today, for nothing. I didn't even read a book. Nothing. I didn't even see your old interviews. I had seen one before. And this Reginald Cave started asking me questions about, how did you come here? I said, I walked. And no, did you take the elevator? No, I usually go on the stairs. And going up, automatically I don't know, I never intend this, but that's how I see things. I start counting the steps. It's 3 stories. I know how many steps every story. I count the tiles to pass the time. I know what color, what's the sequence. And he asked me all these questions. I answered them perfectly. I was admitted to the first class. But I spent my time learning about my life abroad. It's the first thing. 2, I sketched a lot, painted and sketched a lot. And that took me a lot of time. Mm-hmm. By then, one of my oldest friends as a child, Iraqi, I knew in Beirut, said, why don't we go to Beirut? I said, yeah, let's come to Beirut. He came with an Iranian girlfriend. I remember her name even now. Very charming lady. They all came to Beirut, and I took care of showing them around, and Beirut, Lebanon, the mountains. At that time, my father had a Parkinson problem, and he had a treatment to make, surgery in the brain in Edinburgh, and he had to go with my mother, and I was left alone in the city.
Wow. So that was the early 1960s.
That was in 19 something, anyway. It come to me. I meet the president of my school in Beirut. Homsi, gentleman, fantastic person. Waddah, what are you doing? And your parents are not here. Said, I have to stay. Would you think coming and teaching with us this summer? And I was at school in mathematics, tops. I said, yes. Says, yes, you can teach for the summer mathematics, geometry, arithmetic, and algebra. Full time. And you can stay at school. It means I've been locked. So I said, yes, I was very enthusiastic. By then, not to take you too long into it, but I had a feeling for these kids. They were in the summer. They are divided two parts. Either they are kids that their parents didn't want on their own vacation and trips to Europe or something, or those that didn't do well in the year before, but they wanted to recuperate.
You were their teacher.
And these were my favorites. So I divided the class into two parts. One part, they can do whatever they want. Mm-hmm. They can go out anytime they want. They can come back anytime they want. They will all pass.
Right. They must have loved you.
They loved me. They loved me a lot.
Of course.
Another part, there were a few people, maybe 7 or 6 or 7, who were the guys that did the work, and I learned a lot from them. Amazing. Finally, we gave them exams, and it all worked well. The 60s for 70% of the students, and these top kids were top throughout their life. Mm-hmm. I followed them as long as I could.
That's amazing. Okay, so I'll try and continue because we have so much to get through with that. But I wanted to ask you about, so when you went back to Beirut and you started working for publishing houses, you were involved with some political publications, and obviously it was a very interesting time politically.
That is from 1958, when I went to university. I had a friend, a childhood friend. His name is Cesar Namour. We were neighbors in Rue Sedani, where his father, Shukri Shamma's father, in reality, he was more of a father than any father I've known of my friends. Great gentleman, old man, Shukri Shammas. We lived near them. We lived in a rented apartment on Sedani Street. They were across the road in that same street. Shukri Shammas's little villa. At that time, he was an engineer in working in Iraq and beginning work in the Gulf. But his son, Cesar, was a lifelong friend to a degree that one day when I founded, I found contact at the Spain. Mm-hmm. And I decided, yes, I want to see it. It's a long story. And I really flipped on the place, but I didn't have an idea for an art gallery. Mm-hmm. I wanted a design place I could sit and work, and in Hamra environment. And the only person I thought when I was asked to see the contract, I don't know anything about contracts, nothing. I am zero till now. So I thought of my friend Cesar, who was studying business administration in the US when we started university. And I called him. He was very excited, came down. At that time, he was in one of his business adventures that some worked, some didn't work. But the gallery stayed with him because he really was enthusiastic about this thing. It stayed for a year, this partnership. Then he said, Waddah, he packed the books and went home. Mm-hmm. So I can't stand all that, you know. You're chaos. Yes, but that's my line of work. I really like chaos.
We'll talk more about contact just shortly, but I wanted to ask you. So when you were working for these publishing houses, when you first came back to Lebanon,
I started before learning about publishing with this man. He was the assistant editor of Al-Hurriya, Ghassan Kanafani.
Yes, of course.
That's before I started in An-Nahar or the other publishing house, Khayyats.
Yeah, and you were designing book covers for him in the 60s. You were designing book covers for him in the 1960s?
No, the book covers came after I knew him, after I worked with him.
Yeah.
The first book cover, Maut Sarir Raqam 12. It's his first collection of novels.
Okay, amazing. I will go on to the next part because we've got such little time, so many things.
The only copy that's left of it to his family.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
I borrowed it, but we were locked up. I couldn't, I still have it for when I go back to Beirut.
Wow, that's a collectible item right there. That's very important.
It's very valuable for me.
Okay, well, I just want to ask you about Hiwar Magazine. So you started working for Hiwar in 1964, and you made some really, really big changes to the magazine. It went from a simple cover to a very, beautifully designed canvas for Arab artists. Yeah. Can you talk us through that period briefly and the decisions you were making about the design?
I'll tell you. First, Tawfiq Sayer. It's always the people that make you make the choices. He was hounded by everybody from the beginning, before all this history of Hiwar's relationship and so on started. But Tawfiq was the only of the early people that had confidence in me to give an opinion, either in design or in an artist he wants to reflect on. And I contributed without, but it was a contribution that he took seriously. None of that young man having illusions or ideas or whatever it is. He was a serious and serious person about his ideas and about other people's ideas. And I learned a lot from him, and I contributed as much as I could, partly the method of changing the shape of the magazine, of concentrating a bit more on art in a bit more detail. It set a trend in similar publications.
No, exactly. It really did. It was a very important change at the time. And then you moved on to Shir Magazine after Hiwar was closed down in '66.
Yes.
Yes. And then after that, you moved on to An-Nahar Newspaper.
An-Nahar Newspaper.
Yeah.
That also started by, I helped Shir when I was working in Nahar. Sometimes I would design a cover, sometimes something about an artist, something, illustrations to poetry or whatever it is. Well, these things are here. These were Vietnamese poems, modern Vietnamese poets, and Tawfiq was a patriarch, not Tawfiq, Yusuf, a patriarch, one of our patriarchs. Allah, دبر يهودي ارسم لي اياهم, do something. Do something. That's all he cared about. And do something meant I would spend nights doing this, doing that, doing it in negative. That was the beginnings of An-Nahar, until I started doing the literary supplement, mainly for Uns al-Hajj and his ilk, because we were tribes in An-Nahar, groups, well managed by an intellectual of the time that we miss very much now. Not his politics, but his sense of ability to manage groups of people of different political, artistic, literary trends, different. There were people like, on the one side, Uns al-Hajj, a high intellectual person. On the other side, a person like Francois Aql, who is the dynamo of the secretary, editorial secretary. On the other hand, another. Isam Mahfouz.
So many people, so many important people at the time.
These people were quite different, and they all lived their excellent periods in An-Nahar. Now we have something similar, but I don't know, but not in that line, not in an so open a line. It was more, there are well-structured editorial works like in Al-Akhbar. It's a great newspaper now, but it's not An-Nahar.
Mhm.
It's another thing. But the quality, these qualities are rare to come by.
Yeah, of course. And also, it was such an interesting time. So the newspaper was the product of such an interesting time, of course, as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So before I move on to talking about your photography, which I'm personally very excited about asking about, I want to discuss the 1970s. So firstly, as you were saying before with César Namour, you opened Contact Gallery in 1972.
He withdrew
afterwards, yes. So what made you decide? Oh, sorry, I missed that. I missed what you just said.
No, but he withdrew. It doesn't mean that anything happened to our friendship.
Oh, okay, of course.
And one day I was taking a dip in his swimming pool in Arabia, and he started asking, directing inquisitive questions, because by then, in a year, the gallery from nothing flourished into a trendsetter in galleries in Beirut.
Mm-hmm. And so
he was asking about it, about the gallery, how I'm doing. I said, I don't know, I'm doing. So long as it's open, it's open.
So what made you decide initially?
Very interested, I told him. Do you still feel like working in the gallery again? He jumped on the thing. He said, yes, and I can bring, what do we need? I said, we need to recapitalize, because we started with 10,000 Lebanese pounds, which was less than $3,000 at the value of that time. Now we have to start with a capital of 100,000 Lebanese pounds, which means 30, each person, 3 partners. He says, no, I get my brothers, my sisters, I said, no brothers, no sisters, not until we offer the girl that works for a whole year for us for free.
Mm-hmm.
And then she became his girlfriend then. Her name is it come to me now. Some of my best friends' names.
It's okay. If you remember it later, you can tell us.
I said, until we ask her if she can work for us, because she worked for us for free for a whole year. So I went to her. He says, no, okay, you talk to her. We are not on speaking terms. So good. So going down from his swimming pool, I went to her home, Mireille Tabit.
Yes, I think some people were saying that in the chat just now. Some people were giving the name.
Mireille Tabit. Mireille Tabit is a bourgeois girl of a very good family. Her father was, I don't know what line, but was a jurist of fame in Lebanon at that time. And they had their home where there is a mosque now. It was, anyway. I offered her, my idea. She said, yes, immediately. How much should I participate in? I said, it is based on equal partnerships. 33,000. Next morning, I had a check for $33,000, Lebanese pounds.
Wow.
And we formed the gallery.
That's incredible. I mean,
it was based on each one handled something. César takes the books and handles the budget and whatever it is. She handles the space and opening, closing, and meeting people. Art is my line.
Yeah. Well, we only have about 10 minutes left to talk, so I'm going to try and get through the rest very quickly.
Okay.
I wish we could talk more about contact because it's such a fascinating time. But I quickly want to ask very, very quickly about the Baalbek Festival programs that you designed, because you did this very important thing, which was you sponsored reproductions of Lebanese artworks as a substitute for commercial advertising. Can you quickly talk us through that decision and that process?
Yes. Always, when I'm offered a project, it's usually offered under, we like Waddah, this is new young man. That's the idea. Because before that, it was quite a plush publication and well done. And it concentrated on the thematic part in showing images of Lebanon and art of what happened in Lebanon, not art, paintings, but all the old gravures and so on, which were done by a very brilliant architect, Lebanese architect. I'll come back with the names now. But it was classical. The whole thing had nothing modern about it. So for me, that segment was something I wanted to, burrow through. And advertising after that or before that was a fridge was a fridge, a car was a car. I thought at that time there were in Life magazine sponsored art pages in the 70s. And that was the first contemporary art that I have seen in living periodicals. The time in the time, but not time. Life magazine. In Life magazine. Fine. I thought also we'll do Lebanese art. First, the idea was refused because they said the advertisers won't accept. So I went to United Printers, my friends, and we did a fascicule, layout of fascicule page, name company that donates the image, etc., and the logo, as you see. All the advertisers flipped on the idea. So it was, I started just collecting n'importe quoi, just assembling few so that I can fill the pages with the logos. And they were all sold out and outstanding orders. If there isn't somebody declines, they will substitute. They like the idea.
Yeah, it's a very nice idea. I've had the opportunity to look through the program, and it's a very big.
The second program, when I decided to do it on a full period, 100 years of Lebanese art.
Yeah, it's very interesting initiative that you did, and like a lot of people.
That is then, and that idea of 100 years of Lebanese art caught the imagination of some Lebanese sponsors who like to dabble in cultural activity and promotion in London. And they proposed to me to do the idea of an exhibition in London on Lebanese art. But that required not getting images, but going and
Doing paintings.
Going through the hell of asking people to contribute their works. And insurance, and I don't know what, and I don't know what. And at that time, I didn't have the time for this. So they did it their way.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
they did it their own way. It's something I never participated in, but that was the trigger of that idea.
Okay, well, we have such little time and there's still so much to get through. You then moved to Paris, of course, and then you opened Galerie Faris. I won't dwell too much on this because I really want to talk about your photography very quickly. But I actually just wanted to ask, because you were basically the first Arab art gallery in Paris. The Arab World Institute didn't open until the following year. So was there a good reception to the gallery? Were Parisians interested in Arab art?
And I'll tell you. All my life, before that and after that, all, you can take it as a quote, was accidents that I caught and developed through my life. I had no idea I didn't even have the money to start a gallery in Paris. By then, I was living in Rue de Vaugirard with a girlfriend whom I decided not to let her go because I was working in London. I left my job, I left everything, and we went to Paris because she got an offer to work as stagiaire, as trainee in Dior, Christian Dior in Paris. And the only time we met is when I drove her to her Dior, and that's it. Driving there, I always saw a big two shops, two beautiful shops with buy a CD, to lease. But I didn't speak French. I didn't know. I didn't speak a word of French except bonjour, ça va. And ça va, I always thought was a Lebanese word. Yeah. So I went to my cafe, the Domago, and next to me was always the same guy, reading the same book here, which he eventually left to me. I said, look, what is buy a CD? It says it means to lease. I said, thank you very much. I went home, took a shower, changed my shirt, took the phone, dialed the number of the guy who was proposing the buy CD. I want to look at it. I was curious. I want to know the price. I want to know something. And his name was Monsieur Fuchs, the agent. He came on the phone, we made an appointment, I went to see him, then we went to inspect the gallery. The gallery was 50 Rue de l'Université. 50 Rue de l'Université, that's it. And it was run by a young man who was always fidgeting and trying to sell me a chair. I'm sitting on it now.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Wow.
Yeah, crazy. It's really crazy.
Yeah,
And I said, no, later on we'll see. I didn't want to talk to him about the business of leasing, what it costs at the time of the agent. I went out, made the turn, took a coffee, came back. I said, now about this chair. What's this problem of yours? Beautiful big space. Why are you selling it? I said, well, it doesn't belong to me. I am only gerant here. And it belongs to, he gave me a name of one of these millionaire French industrialists. And then he says, but his boyfriend died, for whom he had bought this gallery. Now he doesn't want it, and he doesn't want to pay for it. And we're 2 months overdue. And they will take it from me if I can't pay the money. Said, how much 2 months? It was, I think, about 6,000 francs for 2 months. I said, well, look, let me think about it. And but in the meantime, I bought this chair and I'll answer you tomorrow. Don't worry.
Yeah.
My younger brother, Bishop, who died now, God bless his soul, was working in Saudi Arabia. So I thought, I only have Bishop to talk to about. Hello, Bishop. Look, I'm thinking of opening a gallery, but I don't have money. I'm finished. He says, he's, how much do you need? How much do you need? What do you need? I said, nothing. Now I want to start. I want to rent the place. I want to open it. And by then, Allah bidabbir. Tell me a figure. I said, 100,000 francs will be fine. He said, tomorrow in the Arab Bank in Paris, you go see one Mr. Bishara, and he will have the transfer ready. There were 250,000 francs.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Amazing, but but my brother was amazing.
Yeah, he sounds it.
All my friends were amazing.
Yeah, of course.
By the time we opened this exhibition, that which you see on your screen, I had selected a number of Arab artists to exhibit the opening. I was almost broke again.
Okay. Almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, almost. Well, it clearly went well. So
I had a friend who decided to come from the States and help me with the gallery. His name is Ghassan Kanafani. I sent him so he can. He came. The guy, I sent him to Baghdad to get artists. I sent him to I don't know where. came back, did things. He was working just like a fool. He said, look, Waddah, I know you're not going to be able to pay my next trip to Baghdad. I don't have much money, but I'll go and sell a piece of land that he has with his sisters in Beirut and bring the money back. He went, sold his land and brought the money back and started helping in keeping the gallery going.
Amazing. And it lasted for a few years.
It lasted.
90s.
No, he left. He had to leave for work in the States in less than a year. And the gallery lasted 3 years.
Okay.
3 years exactly.
Okay. Well, I just have one very last question.
I decided to recreate myself in a near Spanish identity.
In Barcelona. Yes.
In Barcelona.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, well, we literally, the conversation is going to end very soon. We would love to have time for like 1 or 2 questions at least. And I would have wanted to ask you so much about your photography, but there's so much to talk about. I mean, I don't know if anyone wants to ask about the photography themselves. I mean, I would love for you to tell us a little bit about your work. And I don't know if you have a favorite photograph that you've taken over the years or a favorite person that you've photographed. There's so much we could talk about when it comes to your photography.
I had a passion to take pictures like this of people I knew only. And that started with a photograph, maybe you've seen it somewhere, of my grandmother. That was my first camera that was given to me by my father. It's a Kodak Bellows thing, you know, one of these old cameras. And that was my first photographic work. Nothing serious by then, but that photograph of my grandmother is something I treasure. Then I started borrowing cameras from friends to photograph until one day, Sami Karkabi, God bless his soul, all my best friends passed before me. Anyway, comes and offers me to design a dépliant for visiting group that are coming to the opening of Karl-Heinz Stockhausen.
It's 19 hours.
19 hours. This guy talks so much. Anyway, the Karl-Heinz Stockhausen concert.
So that was this photo here.
I discovered that Max Ernst is going to be arriving with the group. Oh, so I run down to the camera shop of that great photographer Manouk, and I buy my first serious camera.
Amazing.
To accompany, kidnap this guy from the festival people, because they are all cocktail, je ne sais pas quoi, circuit. And I found out that he was fed up of it. So I said, come, I'll show you Beirut. I took him around Beirut, the old churches, the souks, the things, and I was photographing all the time and dumping these films in my suitcases or developing some of the negative, and that's it.
Waddah, sorry to interrupt. I think we are past time, and I want to respect your time and respect everyone else's time. I wonder if we can take one question just from the chat. There was a question that came from Joyce that was, what about your relationship with Yusuf and Helen Al-Khal? And if I can ask you, if you could try to answer this question maybe in 2-3 minutes, because I don't want to take too much of your time.
Yusuf was the patriarch of this little tribe, which contained from people from Riyad Reyes, from all that group of Shir, of An-Nahar. He was one of the leading persona in Beirut. And we held him in respect, not necessarily accepted his line of thinking. In many ways, we differed, but that was a person of that period for us. And Helen is something else. Helen was, the first time I met her before I met him properly, was in Thea Porter's home in Lebanon. Thea Porter was the wife of a consular personality in the British Embassy, but she was an artist. And I had seen her first exhibition at a gallery in Beirut, and it was something really new to Beiruti practices. And we became friends, very good friends for a long time. And Helen was her doyenne in the art field of Beirut. And she spoke very favorably of her attitude to work, and I liked that. And we also maintained a friendship till the end of her life. Helen, I'm sorry.
Amazing.
And when finally my life took its final shape, I wanted to, introduce my wife to the Lebanese. And of the first that I wanted her to meet was Helen. So we went to New York and we met her there. And that stuck a friendship that never ends till now.
Incredible. Thank you so
Also in Lebanon, I wanted her to know the doyenne of the art scene, the cultural scene, the leftist cultural scene in Beirut, was the lady that founded Dar al-Fan, etc., etc. Anyway.
Thank you so much. Maisa, do you want to just go to the end of the slides? Waddah, I think the main conclusion of this is I think we need to have you back for part 2. because we didn't get through the ending of everything we wanted to go through. So we'd love to have you back.
I've advanced in my cataloging of the images, my compendium of photography, which
we need a special event just on your photography.
I would love to thank you again for joining, and a special thanks to Maisa for conducting the interview. This was a huge thrill for us.
Anytime.
If you want to connect with Waddah and see his photography, you can find him on social media at the link that's shown on the screen. We'll send out a link via email where you can give us some feedback on today's event, and another link on how you can support our work and make sure that conversations like this remain abundant and free to everyone who's interested in joining. And as always, you can look us up on our website and connect with us there. We'll have another call on Thursday with Shaz El Hayek, the man behind the Instagram account Heritage and Roots, who is a historian and an educator in his own right. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Waddah, thank you so much for joining us. And special thanks to your son for helping coordinate this. Thank you, Taimur.
Thank you, Waddah, and thank you, Taimur.
Bye-bye. God bless.